We fight for a cause that we don't even understand. Your brain just turns off because it has no reason to process, no reason to work. There's no such thing as your truth. You're safe or you're in danger. You need to run. Our prime time for brain development was primarily spent in our bedrooms looking at a screen. Hello and welcome to the Alpha Insight Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about a very exciting topic. I did a lot of research for this topic, so I'm really hoping you enjoy. But we're going to be talking about why is Gen Z lost? And there's a lot that goes into this topic. So I'm not going to be able to cover everything and every little thing, but I'm going to do my very best to cover the major key points, at least. So, in a world of endless opportunity and possibility, where technology is rapidly enhancing, and life seems to be easier, but it isn't. In fact, life is seeming to get harder. Depression rates are through the roof. Suicide rates are higher than ever. Confusion and chaos seem to be ruling our world. And now boys can be girls and girls can be boys. Let's talk about this. Because you would think that in a society where anything's possible, technology is rapidly enhancing and life is becoming easier. You'd think that people would be happier, but that's not the case. You can look up the depression rates. You can look up the suicide rates. They're increasing. So let's talk about this. Why is Gen Z lost? Gen Z is considered the lost generation. If you look it up online and whatever, you can find a lot of stuff about that. But I've done a lot of research into this topic, and I'm going to share with you what I found, along with my own opinions on things as well. So to begin our discussion, let's first unpack what it means to be part of the lost generation. It's not about being physically lost, but rather feeling adrift. You like that word? It's a new word for me. But feeling adrift in a rapidly changing world. One of the key points contributing to this sentiment is the overwhelming sense of uncertainty that defines Gen Z's future. Uncertainty. But I'm not going to chalk it all up to that because no. So you may be thinking, Jameson, Gen Z's not lost. Have you looked around? People are confused. People are lonely. We no longer know how to socialize anymore like normal human beings used to. So we live in a world where, boys can be girls and girls can be boys, and it's considered hate speech if you disagree with anybody. It's considered hateful if you question anybody. People fight for peace, but the way they do that is by rioting in the streets and breaking things and whatever else it is that they do. People fight for love when they don't even know what love means. And they fight for truth when everybody has their own truth. There is no truth. We fight for things. We live in a world where we fight for a cause that we don't even understand. We just see some post on social media and think, oh, I'm going to hop on that. When really we don't really even know what the cause is for or what it's doing or anything about it. We can no longer disagree with each other, and it's either right or wrong, black or white. We're lost. As a generation, we are lost. So I'm going to talk about three of the main points, three of the main reasons, at least in my opinion, why Gen Z is lost. So be sure to stick around through today's full episode. It's going to be a really awesome episode. I did so much research looking into this stuff. It was insane, and I'm so excited to share with you what I have. If you do enjoy today's episode, I would really appreciate it if you help me out in whatever way you can. You could do that by sharing a post on Instagram or Facebook. I post pretty regularly now at Alpha Insight Podcast. You can also go to the website and leave a donation because I spent a lot of time into this, and I do a lot to create free content for you, but that would be awesome. Or you could just share a post or send a link to a friend or leave a rating or review. That would be super, super helpful. So, with all that said, let's get into today's episode. Hello, and welcome to the Alpha Insight Podcast, where we talk about new ways to view our society and culture. This platform is not here to harm or shame anyone, but to provide the truth, hoping to help shape you and grow you into a stronger, healthier person. I'm your host, Jameson Riley, and welcome to the show. So point number one that I have down here, why Gen Z is lost, is we have access to too much information. And you may be thinking, Jameson, you talk about this a lot. But it's like any topic that I'm talking about, it's just I look up, why is this happening in today's day and age? Oh, social media. It's a much bigger issue than you think it is. So let's talk about it a little bit. Studies have shown that one of the biggest problems we have as a generation is our ability to think. Our ability to think. Isn't that crazy? You're like, Jameson, I think just fine. We have lost our ability to think. Think about this. I did a lot more research into this, okay? So when you look at a screen, when you're watching a movie, you're scrolling on TikTok, whatever it is, your brain cannot tell the difference between a screen and reality. There's this whole thing called hyperreality that I was looking into heavily for the last 3 days. Maybe I'll talk about that another day, but it's like when you're looking at a screen, your brain, what happens is it has no problems to solve, nothing to think about, nothing to do. And so it's like a switch. It just turns off. When you're watching a movie, your brain dead. You're a vegetable. When you're scrolling on TikTok, just consuming constantly, your brain just turns off because it has no reason to process, no reason to work, because you haven't given it a reason to work. You're just consuming information constantly and avoiding all your problems. And I'm going to get to that in the last point. But what happens is when we're doing this through this cycle, it's wiring our brains to not only crave that, because yes, when we are looking at a screen, it is more stimulation than our brains should have in a single day. This one guy was talking about it. It was, if your screen time is over 3.5 hours, that's more stimulation than your brain should intake every day. And that's not including like the amount of caffeine that you drink and the amount of whatever that you're doing and this or that to make yourself feel better, right? It's just your screen time alone. And so that's what's causing our brains to constantly crave more. So we're not happy. We're not satisfied anymore. But that's not the point. Not that we're not satisfied. It's the point is when you're doing this, it's teaching your brain to just turn off. And your brain, the more times you do something, it builds a habit. And your brain wires itself to do that thing more and more and more. So what's happening is you are teaching your brain to turn off. And a lot of times when situations get uncomfortable or something's hard, like somebody says something uncomfortable in public or whatever, or maybe you don't know what to do and you're standing in the line at Chipotle. Chipotle is my favorite place. So I'm doing that a lot. But you say you're standing in the line at Chipotle and you don't know what to do. You're not going to talk to the person next to you because that's awkward. Who talks to people anymore in public? That's weird. So you check your phone. It's teaching your brain to turn off. The more times you do this, you're just teaching, you're reinforcing that habit to just turn off your brain. So then when it's time to focus on something, when it's time to hone in on something, you're like, oh, I can't focus anymore. My brain's not even processing anything. Can't do my homework. I can't even think. I can't focus, right? Because we're constantly teaching our own brains to turn off. And so we lose the ability to think. And not only are we teaching our brains to turn off, but what also happens is we become mentally lazy. And you're like, Jameson, what are you talking about, dude? Mentally lazy. Yes, you can become lazy to think because it's work to think about things. It's literally, have you ever done so much homework or whatever and it's like, oh my gosh, my brain hurts or I'm exhausted now. I've been thinking for so long because it takes out energy to think. And what happens is not only do we train ourselves to not to turn off our brains, but we become mentally lazy. It's too much energy to think anymore. And I definitely suggest you look this stuff up on your own. I always encourage you to do your own research. But when you look at a screen, your brain cannot tell the difference between a screen and reality because it's like this hyper realistic thing. Because it's got the colors, it's got the pictures, it's got the sound or whatever. It's so realistic that your brain literally cannot tell the difference between reality and you're looking at a screen. Like, look it up. This is real stuff. But this means, what that means is that you may be thinking, Jameson, I'm not stupid. I know when I'm looking at a screen and when I'm looking at a real tree. But if you think about it, hear me out for a second. You look at pictures of jacked dudes all day on Instagram or whatever, which is whatever, okay? I'm into physical fitness and whatever, so that stuff comes up a lot. But, you're looking at pictures of jacked dudes all day or rich people all day, and your brain makes you think that it's real. But also the amount of exposure you have to this makes it even more real. It's like that hyper realism. So your brain can't tell the difference between reality and a screen. So then you start basing your reality off of what your Instagram algorithm is telling you. Your reality becomes, oh, every guy is jacked, and then I'm not jacked, so I'm below average. I'm this or that. I'm not as good and whatever. And then there's also oh, everybody's rich because everybody's got this or that. Everybody's posting about how rich they are. I don't have that much money, so I'm a failure and whatever. And right. So it's driving that it becomes real to you. That becomes reality to you. Hyperrealism. Seriously, go check it out. It's super cool stuff. I just get super stoked about this, and maybe I'll have a full episode on that. But I could have just made this entire topic today about this, but that's not what this is about, okay? One reason we're so lost is because we're living in a world that is based off of truth, that is based off of reality, but it's not reality. And I know I talk about this a lot, and social media and phones and whatever, but phones are a major issue in our everyday lives. Screens are a major issue that we have in our everyday lives. So that's why I talk about it so much. Another problem we have is when we are looking at screens. Yeah. It's a big issue, people. And I want you to be aware, okay? And maybe at the end I'll give you a bonus, but we'll see how long this episode runs. Point number 2, why Gen Z is lost. So point number 1 is because we have access to too much information, and that makes to sum point number 1 up, it's we're living in a hyper realistic reality that's not reality, but this will all kind of come together at the end too. So point number 1, we have access to too much information. Point number 2, why is Gen Z lost? We have lost spirituality and tradition. Gen Z is the top generation for having the highest numbers of people who label themselves as either atheist or agnostic. Gen Z has the lowest numbers of people who label themselves as religious. Wow. It was declining from a couple generations ago, but Gen Z it's dropping even farther. We've lost spirituality and tradition. So, we've lost spirituality and tradition. Let's talk about why. Because, hear me out here, we've been given so much information these days through media, and our brain can no longer distinguish the difference between right and wrong, between real and fake, between right and wrong. For example, let's say I saw a Instagram reel, okay, and it said, the title was 8 Red Flags All Women Have, or something like that. And I watched this reel, and it gave me all these 8 red flags that every woman has. Now, I'm going around and I'm putting that on every woman that I see. I'm like, oh, she's got that red flag. She's got that red flag. And now I'm going out and I'm viewing actual reality as hyper reality off of somebody's opinion. Now I'm going and basing my reality off of somebody's opinion. But my brain takes that as reality because I can't distinguish the difference. So I might notice it for a couple days or whatever, and then I'll talk to somebody and I'm like, yeah, all women suck or whatever. Like, that's a common thing. All men suck. All women or all men are the worst. Like, men suck, whatever. That's a very common thing I see these days. Where'd you get that idea? And maybe it's from experience. Like, this stuff comes from experiences. That's what I'm saying. It comes from reality or somebody else's reality, and then you take that in and you base your reality off of somebody else's opinions, right? So this might get a little confusing here, but track with me, okay? We have so many opinions and false truths being thrown at us, we don't even know how to accept one thing. One religion, one belief. How do you do that? And we form what's called my truth. Because there's so many different realities nowadays, there's so many different beliefs, there's so many different opinions being thrown out into the world. Everybody has their own belief, and I believe in my truth, and you believe in your truth. That's okay. Just as long as it's not, like, affecting me, we're okay. As long as you don't hurt my feelings, we're okay. So everybody has their own truth. But when everybody has my truth or your truth or their own truth, how do you know what's really true? You don't. And then you start to question. You're like, wait, what is truth? And then you're like, oh, maybe I'll just take a little bit from this religion and I'll take a little bit from that religion and I'll take a little bit of this and I'll take a little bit of that. Like, I believe this and I believe that, and love for everybody and rainbows and sunshine and butterflies. But if somebody wants to come across me, like, I don't know, I'm it's everybody's own truth. We're all kind of just figuring out it works for me. My truth works for me. It doesn't have to work for you. But that's not what truth is, my friends. Do you know what truth is? And you know what? Shout out to my teacher. He probably will not ever listen to this, but if he does, thank you. We did talk about this a little bit, and I feel really bad because I was zoned out the entire class. It was a bad point in my life, but man, thank you, my old teacher. Shout out to you for teaching me this stuff. This was awesome. I did pay attention a little bit sometimes. So, see, with that Instagram reel that I saw, that's based off of somebody's reality, somebody's truth, or somebody's opinion. We don't even know what truth is anymore. What is truth? If you're talking about your truth or my truth, that's just an opinion. And I don't care if I hurt some people's feelings today, but there's no such thing as your truth or my truth. That's called an opinion. But truth is the facts. It's the truth. And that's something we don't really grasp these days is it's not a matter of your truth or my truth or whose truth is it. It's the matter of what's the truth. And that's like a whole nother topic for another day. That's a full topic right there. But when everybody has their own truth and their own opinions on things, what happens is we don't know what to believe. We don't know. And what I was finding is a big reason why Gen Z is like dropping out of the church like flies is the LGBTQ community. This came up everywhere. And I was looking at it, and everybody, like these people who grew up in the church and whatever, everybody's like, oh, I believe in God and I, whatever, yes, 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 yes. But they don't support gay people and gay marriage. And I think everybody should be able to love who they want. So we're having these young people who don't know, who have never had reality based in truth because they haven't been shown what the truth really is. I mean, maybe they have, but to some degree. And everybody's kind of just taking little bits and pieces from all these different religions and beliefs. And I'm just going to form my truth. And what happens there is like we're all going to nowhere. We're just aimlessly pointing and trying to hit the target without even knowing like what the target even is. And many of you may be thinking, well, I'm religious, I'm a Christian. Just because you grew up in a religious house does not mean that you're religious. Just because you grew up in the church doesn't make you a Christian, right? It's like I said in that last interview with Bobby. Great interview, by the way. If you haven't heard it, go check it out. Recent surveys have shown younger Americans say they're less religiously affiliated than previous generations. Last year, the Public Religion Research Institute found nearly 40% of Americans between ages 18 and 29 were religiously unaffiliated. Among those 30 to 49 years old, that number was 32%. Both are up from the year before. Man. So nobody has, like, we're all kind of aimlessly pointing into the future and trying to figure out what to believe, what not to believe. We can't be a Christian because God hates, or Christians hate gay people or whatever. We can't be this because we have to do this, like whatever. We're lost. And with no spirituality and traditions and morals that shapes people, that makes people do the things that they do. It gives people a sense of purpose, of hope, but it also like makes people shape their identities that way. And when nobody is religious these days, nobody believes in anything. I don't believe in anything but myself. You're making yourself a god, and you can never be a god, just so you know that. But you can never be God, but you're trying to make yourself God by believing in your own truth. And because of that, we have no sense of direction. Like, we don't know how, like, what do I believe? Like, do I believe that this is right or wrong? And we don't know anymore because there's so many different opinions out there. There's so many different truths, false truths out there, and we don't know. And so it's like we're going through life just, it's like we're trying to go north without having a compass or the sun or the stars or whatever. I think you know what I'm saying. Okay, it's like we're lost. We don't have a sense of direction. And with religion and spirituality and tradition comes a lot of that direction. So now that I talked about that one, let's talk about point number 3. We live in a state of taking no risk. Gen Z is lost because we are immature. Now, before you get super upset with me about that, let me explain. We're living in a world where everyone now has social anxiety and is too scared to get out of their comfort zone. The reason we have so much anxiety when it comes to things like this is because we lack experience. You have anxiety because you lack experience. Simple as that, right? Because as a kid, instead of going out to play with the neighbors, we were watching it on a movie. We were watching those other kids play with their neighbors on a movie. Okay, and this part, it's not going to be all about social media and whatever, so just hang with me, okay? This is a really good point. Gen Z is so lost, and one of the reasons is because we're we lack experience. See, this isn't totally your fault, this part. It's not completely your fault. There's factors that play into this. But kids have been supervised much harder and been given much less freedoms than they used to have. Parents have been keeping their children from experiencing life, meaning we grow up lacking experiences, being weak-minded, not understanding how to process things because we didn't learn when we were younger, when we were supposed to learn. So now it's like, and you may be thinking, my parents were like the best. And yeah, I'm sure your parents were great. But I'm just sharing with you what I found in my studies. Okay, I was researching the crap out of this stuff, each part of this topic. Okay, and parents have been keeping their kids from experiencing life. What have you noticed that like the number of kids these days, Gen Z, who have their license or who got their license at 16 is like way low, like super low. The numbers are just crazy. Kids aren't going out. The numbers of kids going out and drinking is super low, which that's okay. I'm fine with that. Kids having their license, super low. Getting a job, super low. Being in a relationship, also very low. And so we're lacking experience. And why is that? Let's talk a little bit about why are kids not wanting to go out and do things anymore? Why are we lacking experience? Why is this happening? There's two parts that play a role here. And the first is that parents have been giving a lot less freedoms to their kids. That's the first kind of mini point here. And this kind of started with like 9/11 and like kids being abducted all the time. And so parents are kind of freaked out a little bit. So there's been a lot less experience with going and doing new things and stuff like that. Independence these days is given at college much later than it's supposed to happen. And we don't know how to engage in a disagreement anymore without looking for mom and dad to go ban this guy's account. Without looking for the Instagram team to go ban this guy's account. We don't know how to engage in a disagreement anymore without throwing a fit. We don't know how to be independent anymore. Not that we ever did. As a generation, our statistics are insane. And yes, I just said that word right the first time. Thank God. Another reason for this and lack of experience in life is because of COVID. Because during our prime time years when a lot of times we learn most of the stuff that we would have learned is during those COVID years. Our young or old teen years, not being able to see our friends, not being able to go out and experience the world, and being stuck inside. Hold on, I'm getting ahead of myself. But we also think in black and white. We run from our problems. And this is a major reason we have increasing mental health problems because we have been taught growing up by our parents and by our teachers and whoever's in charge to think in safety and danger. Always. You think in safety and danger. That's it. And so a lot of times, we're afraid. And this started a long time ago, okay? Like in the 1900s, this kind of decline. But it's really hitting. There's reasons why this stuff is happening today, but I'm not going to get into the whole backstory right now. But we're running from our problems because what we've been taught growing up our entire time is you're safe or you're in danger. You need to run. You need to get out of there, because terrorists and whatever is becoming a popular thing. Child abduction is becoming a huge thing. All these terrible things are happening and becoming normal. And so it's either safety or danger. And if it's danger, you need to run. And so our mental health is decreasing because we don't know how to deal with our problems anymore. We just know how to run away. And so during COVID, those years when it was supposed to be our primetime years for going out and living life and experiencing things. A lot of times we were stuck inside and we were learning school through a computer. Not allowed to go out and see people, not allowed to go get our driver's license, not allowed to go see our friends, not allowed to have interactions in public with people. Our prime time for brain development was primarily spent in our bedrooms looking at a screen for school, for movies, for TikTok. And because of that, we lack experience. We haven't been able to explore, take risk. So now we have to figure it out at a later age. And on top of that, we were exposed to so much information and social media and whatever else that has caused a constant crave for stimulation. So it's not only that we were grown up in these situations, but COVID really hit it home for us. We were stuck looking at a screen all day for our school and then stuck in our bedrooms all day because we're not allowed to go out and see our friends or hang out with other people. Everybody's afraid of everything now because we've been taught to run away from our fears. And so how do we do that? We sit in our bedrooms and we teach ourselves how to turn off our own brains. We create those, like we really drove those habits home during the COVID times because during those times it was like we really had nothing to do, nowhere to go. So what we did was enforce those habits to just turn off our brain, turn off our brain, turn off your brain. There's nothing else to do. There's no problems. There's nothing. Turn off your brain. So that's why you see such high need for stimulation. That's why we see such high screen time. That's why we're seeing all these hyper realistic realities, all these fake realities, all this major depression because growing up and we're lacking experience and we had a long period of time when we just built habits that were not good for us, really. And we have no compass, no moral compass, nowhere to look to for truth. So we're all just kind of floating around trying to find out what's really true. How do I get out of this? And a lot of you are content in your lives living like that because you're comfortable there. Why would you ever want to do anything that's uncomfortable? Why would you want to go have new experiences, go meet new people? Why would you want to do that when it's so comfortable when you're just turning your brain off? Of course it's comfortable because you don't have to think about anything. You don't have to think about your problems. You don't have to think about becoming a better person. You don't have to think about your regrets. You don't have to think about whatever, right? So anytime anything gets hard, we just turn off our brains because that's what's been enforced since our childhood to run. This is why I talk a lot about strengthening your mind and doing something hard because without it, you don't gain real experiences. Without doing something hard, you're going to be weak. You know, your body gets stronger when you lift heavy things, when you do hard stuff. Same with your mind. Your mind gets stronger when you do hard things, when you go through hard stuff. So how do you focus these days? This is that little bonus part that I was talking to you about. That bonus part is right here. And I wasn't going to talk about it because it's super late, but I'm going to talk about it anyways. How did I learn how to focus? How did I learn how to get my work done? I do a little thing called, and you've heard me talk about it before, and I didn't come up with this. I use this. I had learned it from a YouTuber, Iman Gaji. I don't know how to say his last name right, but go check him out. Super, super good content. But it's called the dopamine detox. Every once in a while, when I notice my screen time way higher than I would like it to be, because yes, I struggle a lot with that, you know. I'm not saying I'm better than you, okay? I have the same issues that everybody else has. And so when I notice myself, when I can't focus, or when I'm checking my phone constantly, or when I find myself being lazy, what do? I do a hard reset. I rewire my brain. So what's a dopamine detox? It's a period of time when you cut out any and all stimulation from your life. It can even, just be for a day. You have these hard set rules and you're trying to cut out you're basically trying to be as bored as you possibly can. You're just trying to learn how to live in the moment, be happy in the moment, use your brain to think, kick it into gear. And it's a hard reset for your brain so you can relearn how to use your mind and focus on tasks. And then when you're all done with it, you're like, oh man, like you notice your screen time levels are way down and you don't feel the need to check your phone anymore. You don't feel the need to, have that stimulation constantly through, whatever it is, music or whatever. You don't feel the need to whatever, right? But it helps you get back to your everyday life. You find it much easier to focus. Your brain is your most valuable tool. And you need to learn how to use it. But you're not going to live it, or you're not going to use it when you're not trying. If you live constantly trying to focus but it isn't working or can't go without stimulation for more than an hour, try it. It doesn't have to be crazy. It could just be for a day. But just try something hard for once. Teach yourself how to do something hard. The purpose of it is to be boring. But try it. Try to do something hard for once. Try and get out of the cycle that you've been in for years. Just go against the grain and let me know what you think. I would love to hear your thoughts because I just did one recently. I just did 2 of them actually, and it went awesome. So let me know how yours goes. But strengthen your mind. Learn how to take control of your own mind. That's what I talk about. How to strengthen your own mind. Gain some real experiences, my friends. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. If you enjoyed, I would really appreciate it if you, share a link to a friend or a family member or, leave a rating or review on whatever platform you're listening on. Leave a tip on the website, whatever you could do to help out, or repost something that I post during the week. Anything would be super, super helpful. I know you guys have been doing a great job doing that stuff, and I really appreciate you. But I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I put a lot of research into this topic. So yeah, I was super stoked to talk about this today. Alrighty, well, to wrap up today's episode, I really do appreciate you listening today. Next week, we're going to be talking about if Gen Z should just give up. A question that's been rising in the youth a lot, and I want to talk about it. Thank you for being so patient with me over my break. I had a lot of stuff I wanted to do and a lot of stuff I wanted to figure out with this podcast, and I'm ready to kick it back into gear. So I'm back. Thank you for being patient with me. I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week.